Yeah, we're going to start over here. We're not going to do every single tree, but we're going to highlight trees that we find to be interesting. And so, you want to start with this trident? Or do you want to go down the line? How do you feel?
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the trident. So, first impression, what are we looking at, guys?
It's a nice tree. I like the tree a lot. My feeling is the display could be a little more refined. Typically when you're showing trees, there are just like a certain etiquette you want to follow, and like one of them is you don't want to be in like a mica pot or training container.
Yeah.
Things like that. And so it's mostly like tree-wise, technically how it's grown, it's pretty good tree. It's really nice. But most of my issues are with the display. I think the round container isn't my favorite, and the stand I think is a bit bulky and large.
Yeah, and I mean this just comes down to access to certain materials for display.
Sure.
I mean it's a round pot. It would be best in an oval or maybe a soft rectangle.
Sure.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like, oval. I mean, it could be a number of different shapes provided like the specific pot fits for the tree, because it's hard to say exactly what shape, because you can take a moco and squish it down and have it be a lot shallower than you normally would. You can have many different shapes and tapers to mocos. You can have a lot of different versions of the same shape. So I'm not so much hung up on the fact, I just don't like an equilateral pot. I don't like that it's equal on all sides. So.
What do you think, Carmen?
Yeah,
what do you think, Carmen?
I didn't realize it was a trident maple at first because of how it was potted up in such a big container that's generally used for a conifer. But I think the tree has a lot of potential. It's got good branching. It's got some twigging on it. I think it has farther to go in refinement. I'd love to see the Nabari kind of pancaked out a little bit more on this, since that's pretty traditional with the trident maple. It's got good roots. I'd love to just see it pancake
do something
as
more.
It goes. But I think moving it into a glazed oval and then a less bulky stand, something a little bit more delicate, maybe dark in color. But I like that it's low.
Yeah.
That's really nice, because with a big tall tree, a big heavy tree, having it lower on the table is a really nice way to still be able to view it at a good height. So I'm happy with that. And one of the things that I really actually like about this show is how much space you've given each tree. I think giving most of the trees their own 6 foot or 8 foot space has been really good.
That's something I was able to accommodate for, because we didn't get as many trees as I would hope, but I had just enough space marked out for each one. So in your opinion, both of you guys, like 6 foot per display?
Should be 70. It should be the size of a tatami mat, or usually 72 inches roughly, something like that.
What is that?
So like that.
What is that?
That is about perfect.
So that is about perfect. So it's around that area.
In some shows,
in some shows it's a little bit tighter. It's a little bit harder to pull that off. Also, table height is important. We're not at official table height here. These are like folding tables. They're quite low. I know it's usually higher, if I'm correct.
I like
Me
it.
too.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think they're at an adequate height. I think the height's great.
You think that's good?
Yeah.
You think that's good? Yeah, because I've heard somewhere down the line that having higher tables too. But this
is where we're at with it.
This is where we're at with it. So
Next
tree.
All right. So
Cool.
I wanted to
All right.
talk about this.
So I wanted to talk about this one
because Mike might
know a little bit about this.
I just wanted to get some.
So here's some context on this one. This is a water elm. I have performed most of the wiring work. Laurent Darrow started the cosmic design, and then my friend Chase is around here somewhere. He's one of our bonsai buds, of course, but he made the floating island display here. It's very windy today, so it's a little scary watching it move around, but I think it's dynamic enough for that.
But yeah.
Mike, you actually touched some of the deadwood features on this one back, and you touched it up.
The opening and of the scarification.
Yeah, I'll be a little more hands off on this one.
I'll be a little more hands off on this one because I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Carmen, do you want
I'm
to
just
go
interested for a few minutes.
Sure. So I think this is a really fun display. I like that it went full cosmic with the display as well, because I mean it's a very non-traditional style. It kind of has idea that goes with it of like spaceships and robots and dystopia and all that stuff. And I feel like it's here in the display. I want the tree to be a little bit older. There's a few straight parts in the trunk that I wish there was a little bit more movement in. But I think it's like it's on its way to being,
it's just a young
it's just a young tree.
Young
So I think give it
Yes.
10 more years,
and it's going to be
Yeah.
cool.
and it's going to be really
but
cool.
I really do love this
But I really do love the spaceship crashing into it. I think that's kind of a fun way to bring in that element to it. So it's non-traditional, but
I like it too. I think Carmen like nailed it with like even especially with cosmic design. You think you really want like the tree will be mature when these branches are this thickness, and you have the scarification that's pulling away from the trunk, and you really have that. It'll be the more mature version of the tree. But where you're at, it's fine to have shown it, like this. I think it looks great. My own critique, I'm going to go a little in the opposite of what Carmen said, and I almost would love to see this here as the accent, and I would almost get rid of the stone completely, because I feel the stone really is too traditional to go with everything else you have on the display. And I almost feel like there is still like a nuance to the 3-point display where the spaceship is cool in the tree, but I almost think you could preserve some of the traditional 3-point display by using that as an accent and still convey that, like, you know what I'm saying?
Maybe get another water elm and a smaller version and have
Something
it
like
wrecked
that,
in
yeah. Off to the side wrecked
Yeah.
might be cool. But it's very Nick Lenz-like.
one of the
Nick Lenz
things-
did stuff like that, and that's awesome.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
put like figures and
Yeah, so
toys
it's
and
very
stuff.
cool.
And one comment about the Suiseki, or the Shikusa Suiseki stone here, is that was
Right.
on hand, and it had some elements in it that are similar to floating islands.
It's just there.
I
and
agree.
it's just
I
there,
agree.
and it is. And someone, I think it was Julian, was walking around earlier with looking at this tree, and he was like, "It needs a grounded
That's why we
element."
went with that.
So
No,
that's
I
why
don't,
we
I
went
don't
with that.
disagree,
So,
but I
yeah.
think like I would have, in me personally, I would have found something like from like your Tyranid. You had that little monster, man. Put the monster out there.
Yeah,
You something like
and we'll
that.
see how it goes.
But-
This is its debut, so we'll see how it goes. It's been getting some questionable
well, that's the whole
looks,
thing.
but
It's going to.
that's the point.
One other. The
Yeah.
next challenge.
What's up?
The next challenge is to make the stand alive.
Yep.
Make it alive.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
And
cool.
here's a comment.
And here's a comment on that really quick. I know a counterpoint.
It's fine.
No,
actually. Maybe you even thought of it.
So in fairness, I told Chase to really go in there and do his thing. And in Warhammer modeling, this is very common.
Okay.
To have the mosses that are artificial.
And that's
It's
fabulous.
true to the form, but I get that though. I get that
It would be
approach.
really fun.
And dry
Yeah, it
ice.
would.
You need
It
some
would be
dry
challenging.
ice.
Oh yeah.
Come out of the hole.
Oh yeah, it was like
Yeah,
that
I
fake
agree.
smoky look.
Yeah, it'd be super. Oh, that's a great idea. Coming out the thrusters.
Let's get it traditional.
All right, let's get it traditional. So I wanted to move to this display because I feel like it's something a little bit more fun for Mike to look at too. I feel like you've worked on a few of these trees. So,
I have, yeah.
But anyway, as far as that goes, we're not so worried about like the work that's been done. I just want to talk about how this is put together because Mike,
Yeah.
this is your strong point here. Do you feel like the artist here has executed this display?
I think so. Yeah, done a good job. There's a few things that I personally.
Walk up to it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
You go too.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So there's a few things. It is a good display. I have worked on some of these trees. I know the artist. She's a very good artist, very skilled. There are some things that I might change a little bit. I think the most fundamental thing, which is very traditional, it doesn't realistically matter for the look, but the black pine sitting at a lower position is usually seen as we wouldn't use this black pine for a top tree, but we would use a stronger pine for the top tree, and we wouldn't have a pine sitting lower than the top tree.
And that's
So,
very, very traditional.
That's very
approach to that.
traditional, and the reason is the respect element of paying the respect to the black pine as the patriarch of bonsai. So it is like the king. It's what was originally studied. It's the longest studied tree, and so it gets the high ground. Now, if you don't have a black pine, then you start looking for trees of similar significance. So a tree in your area that holds a similar kind of reverence.
Yep.
So bald cypress for your area, but maybe buttonwood for my area, but it's something held to a very high reverence. Where this tree would come into play is probably as an assistant. So as an assistant during like winter display, something like that might be really, really good. And I'd actually move the juniper somewhere else into the display. So
That's why I wanted to see what you thought, because I could tell walking up to it that is not typical. And is the argument, could it be made that it should be a formal, informal,
And
strong pose?
that's a misnomer too, is that it shouldn't necessarily be, it doesn't have to be a formal upright. It has to be a more formal tree. So it can't be, it doesn't have to be just a straight up and down post, and that's actually avoided most of the time. It's usually an informal upright leaning one or of two directions, but slightly, and it's a very subtle move in either direction. And so it acts as like the point to everything, you know, but it does add the first directionality to the design.
Yeah.
So like if the pine is leaning slightly this way, then obviously your assistant's going to need to go to that side. And so it's going to set the direction for everything else.
Does it feel like this is part of it, or does this feel like a separate display?
No, it definitely does feel like part of it. I mean, because this is the space you're given. And when you think about traditional Japanese displays, it makes a lot of sense when you think of the fact that you are given these limitations pretty standardized. And so your job, if you're growing small trees, is to fill this visual space to the best of your ability. So if I'm putting a big tree here, obviously I don't need as much to fill in that space. But if I'm using small trees, well, now I need to start accumulating more and more material until I fill a pleasing amount of that visual space. So that's really what it's about, is trying to fill in those areas. So cabinet sizes, people always ask, why are Shohin maxed out at 8 inches? Because you can't make this cabinet infinitely big and fit it on this table. Yeah. So you will max out at a certain size, and so that size is going to be about here, and you need to have 3 to 4 inches of negative space around every tree.
Yeah.
So if you can't have that, then the tree's too tall. And so everything boils down to display culture and why certain designs. In Shohin design, you won't even typically see 99% of the trees you'll see are going to be semi-cascade or informal, because they're the easiest ones to play along with others. It's display culture.
Yeah.
So that's what I know about that. So it's a nice display. I like the variance of pots, textures, things that I'm seeing. It's a lot to look at. I would like to see more refinement on the trees. The one that's furthest along, I'd say the juniper's looking pretty good and the elm is looking pretty good, but I would refine the rest a little further. And it could be a really, really nice Shohin display. I mean, it is a nice Shohin display, but it could be further refined.
Cool. Any thoughts, Carmen?
Yeah, I agree with everything Mike said. I think the one other thing that I would like to see is the ficus and the accent separated on maybe their own jitas each, just to create a little bit more space. It feels a little bit crowded. I want a little bit more negative space between the two. But I mean, that's a very minor thing.
Yeah, that's why my question was, is it felt like it was separate because of the way that is.
Because of that.
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I was kind of feeling.
But yeah, the variation of the pots is nice. The trees can only get more refined, so I think it's a very nice display, and I'm excited to see how it continues to mature over time.
Cool. All right, let's turn around. Yep, let's swap sides. I want to talk about this Brazilian over here. Yep. So.
Which side are we on?
What's best for you? Right here?
On this way.
Yep. So it looks like someone did their homework and did a really good 3-point here. So wanted to go through, because we just did the Shohin box, right? And so there's a lot of things to be talked about with the way that the 3-point set up as well. And I just wanted to make sure that we kind of cover every point here. So, you know, height of the stand, placement of the scroll, size of the shikusa in comparison to the tree. So from my standpoint, I feel like there's a lot of elements. Like we have, the stand is really interesting. It's really cool. And then having the jita also being kind of an organic element as well. Does that feel a little clashing, or how's that feel to you guys?
No, I don't necessarily mind it so much. It's fine.
You think it's okay?
Yeah, I'd say spacing's a little tight on some of it for me, and I'd say the scroll's a little high.
Okay.
I would say that the stand feels a tad high as well. The height of the stand feels high of the main tree. But overall, like it's a pretty good 3-point display. You should almost feel like that bird is connected to the design in a way. Like it should really be, and the lower it goes, if you lowered it down a little bit, I think you'd have a little bit more connection to that environment. So other than that, the biggest critique, I think, is just spacing a little bit. If we lowered the height on the main tree and brought the scroll down slightly, I'd be very, very, very happy. The accent's fantastic. might be a little large for the tree, but it's fantastically constructed. I mean, that's a great accent. So.
Yeah. And one of the things that I like looking at when I see 3-point displays is that if every element matches and makes a suggestion of where it is located in some type of environment. So I think this is still relevant to the range. So, and then the bird, does that feel like that matches this environment?
I would say they're different environments. I would say one is like one is either plains or like lush jungles and things like that. So they grow on the plains of Mexico. And so they're not, I'm seeing more like a swampy kind of feel and theme or a marshy theme from the bird. And they're definitely not known as a marshy plant per se. So it's not that it's the end of the world, but definitely if you're really trying to tie in that theme of environment, having accurate locality is really important. You don't want to show like a pine tree forest and have a buttonwood. You don't want to show like a pine, scroll with a pine branch or something like that, and then have a buttonwood.
Yeah.
You would want something that's reflects the locality a little bit more.
Thoughts,
I
Carmen?
would think.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that Mike said.
That's I mean, it tends to be wordy, and then you're like, yep, I agree.
Yep. I think this is, just to speak a little bit about the tree itself, I think it's a really lovely tree. I think it's very well proportioned within itself. I'd like to see a little bit more twigging and refinement further out on, in the branches. But the silhouette is lovely. The leaves are very small. You can still see the trunk. There's some nice movement. The pot is beautiful.
I was going to say, yeah.
I love that pot. This is like one of the nicer things, or not nicer, but one of the nice things about tropicals is you can be a little bit more
showy,
boisterous. Yeah,
boisterous is a good word for it.
Flamboyant.
I think it's one of my favorite pots in the show too. It's a very beautiful pot.
It's actually very reminiscent of it, that. I feel matches the swampy theme of. Because it almost looks like a little bit of water, a little bit of movement in the pot's glaze. There's some cooler colors. So but I do think the stand is maybe a little bit tall. Maybe a shorter, wider stand would be better. Yep. And the Kusumono is a little bit too tall for this display. And I'd like to see maybe a little more color variation between the pot that the Kusumono is in and the Jita. They're a little bit similar. And then they're different from this, which is what you need, but then they're a little too similar to each other. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love the Kusumono, and I love every element of the display. But I think it could be improved by, some of the things that Mike said.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right, you guys want to move to the middle here and see? I want you guys to go in the middle here, and I want to see which tree in that middle section sparks an interest, and we go straight to it.
All right.
I think that would be kind of nice. Yep.
Uh-oh.
Yep. We're gonna move to the middle section here, guys. Standing back, which one draws your eye first?
Which one draws my eye?
The juniper or whatever that
this
is.
Right? Oh yeah, let's go here. Okay.
It was just the biggest thing I think I saw was this Hollywood juniper. Yeah.
Nope.
Eastern red cedar.
Eastern red cedar.
Nice.
So I'm happy to see that this one was kind of spotted out. So I actually asked the gentleman who has this tree to show it.
Oh, sorry.
To show it at our Say Bonsai show, because there's a couple of things going on here that I really enjoy. Eastern red cedar is one of the only conifers in our range, in our native range, this southeast range, that works, and that can actually make a really nice conifer. Because other options we got are like loblolly pine,
right.
Maybe some slash pine, Virginiana pines. But when it comes to needle, like juniper stuff, not needle, but scale foliage junipers, it's kind of tough. And Eastern red pine is kind of like that old man, kind of like cemetery tree here normally. So it's in rare form to see strong roots, interesting gin, and some kind of padding on a cedar like this.
For sure.
So I thought it was a really neat tree. I'm glad that that Mr. Joey had brought it along for display. Now, as far as his display elements, like his stand and the lack of shikusa, that can kind of be looked past right now, because the stand itself is, it's got its own charm. I do enjoy the very ready-made version or feel of that stand, though. But yeah, I want to see what y'all's thoughts are as far as the way that it was created or how it's going. So good. Yeah, this is a fun tree.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Carmen, what are your thoughts?
Let me look at it. You want to know what I think?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you should cut that branch off.
Yeah,
Which
I agree
one?
with that.
The one on the
You don't
on
need
this
it.
side.
I think it'll be more dynamic
Make gin,
as a leaning
yeah.
tree and create a secondary trunk in here. This is probably one of the healthiest, biggest like Eastern red cedars I've seen as bonsai. Like this is a really good material.
Yeah.
And I think that it could become even better with a couple adjustments just to make it a more dynamic presentation. So it's super healthy. Let's do it right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Sorry, I won't.
You're good.
But I agree with that. I think it's a little too symmetrical right now.
I've actually seen the gin up in there.
I think if you gin that off to the left and made a nice piece of deadwood out of it, that's really a lot of interest you're creating. I think it's too wide currently as well, so I think that fixes that problem. So
It'll
yeah,
get rid of the triangle
it does.
pointiness of it.
It does. So you'll really add a lot of character to the tree just by getting rid of that one branch. The other thing that I don't know that I would have, and this isn't wrong, this isn't like a negative, it's not a right or a wrong, it's just how I don't know that I would have designed it this way, is I tend to not develop conifers with a deciduous branch structure. It's
Yeah,
got a
it's
very
kinda-
much up and out branch structure.
Kind of like almost like a flame shape.
But some artists do that. I mean, I've seen it. It's common. You know, it's not uncommon. It's just probably not how I would have approached the material. I would have maybe probably swept some more stuff and kind of brought things more down, drop branches, things like that. But that's the beauty of it, is it can be styled in a number of different ways and enjoyed all of those ways. So
A lot of the red cedars up north are very upright,
Oaky.
straight trunk
Yeah.
trees, and so that part doesn't bother me so much. And again, like you said, it's not wrong. I probably would, were we to gin that, I probably would then maybe increase the movement to the right with maybe a little bit more sweeping. But I think kind of up and out is kind of a fun way to approach a conifer because you don't see it too much. And this would be a good, since it's so far along in its current style, that'd be a really good way to keep going with it.
absolutely. Oh, I definitely wouldn't go back now.
yeah.
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 But no, I agree with Carmen. It is definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, did you knock my shrimp over?
No, I didn't. I was fixing
Thank you. Oh, it was off center. No. I liked how you had it before.
We're
I liked
gonna
where you
we're
just
gonna bypass Mike's display
Oh man, I wanted to go as hard as possible.
because let's talk about a bald cypress.
Okay, this is kind of cool.
Yep. I think that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I like the little
I like the still.
bootlegger.
I like the
Yep.
still.
Yeah, so this is what Say Bonsai is about this year, our bald cypresses. So we invited a lot of people to bring in bald cypress displays. This one came from Rusty
Carolina?
Harris,
Yeah.
North Carolina. So they also have a really strong bonsai, bald cypress bonsai presence there. Lots of opinions on how flat top should be created. So this is going to be fun because you understand flat tops a certain way. I do. Carmen, you're kind of in this in between, right? But when it comes to the overall presentation of the tree, this one kind of feels kind of like when you got that tree from Nate and you had that primordial kind of feel
Right.
to it. It's got that
Yeah.
lumpy dinosaur, inverse. He's not shy about his inverse.
Yeah.
Up the trunk there, big thick branches and stuff. And even the way it's kind of crudely shown, I'm gonna say it's a little bit, I don't want to sound harsh, but it's crudely shown on this piece of live wood right here. I'm a little indifferent about the sparkly top dressing.
Yeah.
I don't know how or what that relates to. Maybe it's something that the artist would have an opinion on why they did that. But
the sun glinting on the water, Evan.
is it?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they're suggesting that this is water. That could be it. I don't know if the material was effective enough to do that. I probably would have just enjoyed it mossed over completely. So, but yeah, go ahead, Mike. What you think?
So it's an old tree, and so that's really important in bonsai. We want to show trees that are old. They're the most valuable, most revered, but that doesn't mean that old trees get off scot-free all the time. It doesn't mean that certain corrections can't be made. I would say you're kind of, other than starting the tree over, I don't know how you deal with that reverse taper. You can maybe carve something into it, but I would say you're locked in. I would deal more with the branching. The branching is where I'd focus most of my attention. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff feels pretty far gone as far as building good ramification. This is probably a branch I would take in to about here, and this one I might take into here and rebuild. Just my own personal taste, just because we are getting a lot of this, not even just reverse taper, but wounds that have been cut in so many different directions and so close together that now we've created not just a circular wound, but a wound that kind of goes around the branch.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult to heal, very difficult to bring that branch back from that point. So me personally, that would bother me, and I'd want to fix that. You do have already buds in the base of the branch, a lot of buds. They will back bud just fine. The rest of the structure I don't really have a huge issue with. It's mostly these two branches that I would say I would adjust. You know, maybe this one, but
I could probably do without the one you just pointed at.
this one?
Yeah.
I could probably do without that as well. It's pretty
Just
straight.
completely take it off.
Or even just, you could, if you're unsure, you could always stub and bring the bud
You
out.
don't think you would take it off?
I think you need it.
Why is that?
Otherwise, what else do you have?
No, but look,
Well-
you could always, and I'm not saying you even use these because everything's up and out, but hypothetically, if you cut to here, you're going to get more buds off of there. And I'm not saying you
that'd be
even do
fine.
it. Yeah.
And
but
it's given
that's
for the
something
species.
I
yeah.
just wouldn't take it off and not regrow it.
You don't think so?
No.
Yeah, it just kind of goes, I would like to see
Well-
more emphasis on this lofty, you got this really nice peaky branch back here. And if we're going to go with these big wound-looking branches, and Mike, you're suggesting cutting back and rebuilding a few of them, and I mean...
And you don't have to. You can work with what you have. You
Yeah.
just live with the issues that it's going to present.
And
So
there are some styles, almost like a pinjing kind of thing, where
Sure.
they do have those big, lumpy old branches
Sure.
with twigs coming straight out of that.
my argument against that is that penjing is not quite as technical as bonsai. I will say I know people might be a hard,
It's a different school of thought.
it's a different
for it.
school of thought. They're
Yeah.
not looking for as extreme of ramification. They're not refining trees to as deep of a level typically. You know, so penjing is more playful. Penjing's more about the character of the tree. Do you see a spirit in it? Do you see a giraffe? You know, it's more about being playful to shapes. And a lot of times the branching is a secondary thought on some schools of penjing.
Yep.
There are other schools like the Southern style and practiced in Taiwan that are very, very, very in depth, but we don't even consider that penjing anymore. It's closer to bonsai.
Yep.
So that
Some
would be
closing
my
notes
argument.
on this one. Being experienced and versed in bald cypress, the knees are of note on here.
I like the knees. The knees are awesome.
This is okay. So if we can get past some of the structural kind of conversation here and stuff like that, when it comes to the quality of this base, that's pretty spectacular. That's one of the better bald cypress bases I've seen, probably ever.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I can tell right here, this little knee kind of thing happening, that's new. Because whenever they usually get potted up, they get these really, really thin roots and they pop up suddenly and they make that little knee section. Some bonsai artists will raise that and encourage that more. Mr. Randy Bennett, he's done a lot of work with that too, where he sees their little tiny hairline, almost like he said it's like a pencil lead thin root, and all of a sudden there's a knee popped off of it. So I can tell that this was rebuilt, but then finding these roots that have those knees, that one's fun, that have these knees popping up, you can see there's a little bit of dieback peeking on that one.
Yeah.
But then they'll heal right over. It's part of the vascular root system. So it's possible to get them like this. And I really enjoy this part of the tree.
Yeah, me
And,
too.
You know, and there's a lot of things going on up here, but I mean, this thing could be built a million different ways with that bottom there, with that
Yeah,
root base.
For sure.
So I like the
I like the
bootlegger.
still, yeah.
Yep, that's really fun. So what's the next?
Well, I just want to real quick just comment on how cool this gourd stone is, whatever that is.
Is
Yes.
it a duck or a rabbit?
It's a gourd.
Is it a duck or a rabbit?
Oh,
Ah.
I see.
What's the
I
animal
didn't see
shape
that
of the
at
stone?
first. I think I see a duck. Yeah, but
I don't know if that was intentional by the artist displaying this piece.
that's like a gourd. That looks just like a gourd to me.
Yep.
Like that's awesome.
I love the rock. Did you see the interactive display?
I didn't turn it over. I didn't know if I was allowed.
turn
I
it
thought it
over.
was a trick. That feels good.
So we got two pretty good ones. Which one do y'all want to talk about for for
The
time?
junipers or which ones?
The primna or the juniper? Which one do you
I
think?
do the juniper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look
We're
at this.
talking about what trees like drew us to
Yep.
them.
Yeah, what's
This
more?
one drew
That one's
me to
interesting. This one This is pretty good.
it. That's a nice
Yeah.
juniper.
Come around, guys. we need for angle.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. So this one comes from Texas. This artist has gone with Procumbens nana, which
Pete Parker. Yeah.
Yep, it's a very understudied juniper, but then at the same time, when people do it, this is what we can do with this this variety, this garden juniper, considered to be inferior. That's why we were talking earlier in the podcast, like eventually we want to start working on material like this, but then this is like everyone's first bonsai tree as well.
Right.
So, but this is there's a lot going on here. Look, you can find them because they are creepers. So it looks like he found a stock with multiple trunks.
Yeah.
Typically, people will take off all those pieces, and you would say this dominant taller piece here, that would be an excellent bonsai on its own. But the artist has chosen here to go with the other elements of this and make it more of like a, what you call it, a sinuous root kind of style here. But what's really interesting to me on this is that his flow is suggesting that way, even though we got some dropping elements, some cascading elements, because he's got a shikusa on the other side. But and you would probably kind of go back and forth with me on this, because you've seen flow on trees.
Flow, yeah.
And I've said, what's the flow on this tree? And you're like, you say something I can't expect, or wouldn't expect, but you're making that face. What?
Yeah, I just saw the flow.
It's flowing that way,
match.
yeah. No.
It's a right flow.
Yeah.
Does
it's
that
potted.
deadwood feature
It's not strong enough.
not strong enough to make it? Could it have been strong enough?
No.
No. I don't know. That's a really arousing question for me. Is like, is that deadwood? Could it ever have been a feature? Is that possible in this type
If you
of?
cut both of those off.
Right. It would have to be so dominant that you have no other choice but to view the tree and going in that direction.
It would have to be framed a little bit more.
It would have to be very dominant.
Yeah.
Like this crown would need to be like that. This would need to be maybe non-existent. This one might need to be super tiny, and even then you might still struggle to pull the eye that direction.
Yeah.
So it'd be hard.
Move the whole thing to the left in the pot. The accent over there.
Yeah, and you're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really nicely done. It's well padded out and
It
has
is.
mature foliage for a Procumbens nana. I don't like working with them because they are like the hardest juniper.
They are.
They're
They're
like, I don't know why people start, like, that's not a good tree. Don't start with this.
No,
It's so hard
it's very
to
difficult.
Start with. It's hard to work with even as a professional. This is probably the best nana, one of the best nanas I've ever seen.
It just needs a little bit of flow change.
It needs a little bit of,
Yeah.
a little bit of tidying up.
But I agree with Carmen.
It's really lovely.
These are like the hardest juniper. They're just. I was talking with Seth about using them if they use them in Japan, and he said they really don't. You know, they avoid them because they have soft deadwood, numerous other issues, reverse taper issues. So this one is phenomenal, and just a really fun tree to look at.
And I do want to talk about the display because it's really, really well done.
Yeah, the table's
all the
awesome.
elements are different, but they all go together. The accent is in a pretty good proportion. It could be a little bit smaller, but it's so nice. I don't care.
Pot's really nice.
Pot's really nice.
Stand's really
It's
nice.
very beautiful.
Yeah, it's a high-level display for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So what time is it right now?
12:51.
Okay, we got time for about maybe 2 more. We're gonna walk
Okay.
around the other side.
All right.
Yep.
Is there anything you guys want us to talk about?
Anybody in the crowd that wants to talk about trees? We just talked about here, so. Yeah. So and
Specific.
let's just kind of. Anything over here?
I like that tree a lot.
There's another flow.
Yeah, flow. We could talk about this.
Yep. Let's
If
talk
you
about
want.
that one, and then we'll end with the big gigantic cypress at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get over here, guys. Okay, so critique on Randy Bennett with his twin trunk cypress. This that appears to be connected there. It's kind of hard to tell,
Yeah.
I
but
want the front to be right
That's
here.
what I want.
that's
And
actually, we're standing here on the side, and so,
I also want it potted either more centered or way over.
yeah. And I'm just wondering if, like, where's the flow? The flow feels like it is that way.
No, the flow would definitely be that way.
It would be this way
Yeah.
from this front.
from this front. Yeah.
Yes, and it still is like from where it's being suggested too.
Yeah.
It does feel like it could be different though, in my opinion, because of how strong the main tree is kind of going that
The
direction.
top would have to go that direction.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
exactly.
top would
Top's
go
all
that
coming
way.
this way.
I think I would like it. In my opinion, you guys are saying different, but I would like it going slightly that way, especially if I'm looking at this presented could be a front. I know, like, from the viewpoint, it's going to be hard because we'll have the camera come around and kind of show what we're looking at in a little while here, but there was a couple of other elements here, like this is a different thing with the 3-point display here with the bird. This is a, I think it's an egret. Yeah, because there's so many different egrets.
And honestly, that scroll, the height and the way it sits in proportion to that tree, that's the bird sitting in the tree. That's a really good way of using that scroll.
And that's a swamp bird with a swamp tree.
Yeah.
Yep. And so is the bird supposed to point towards the tree or away from the tree?
I almost think it doesn't matter because he's continuing on to the Shitakusa, and then it continues back over. I think the flow's fine that way.
Okay, cool.
That's one of the things I was that match. At. That scroll pairs awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
It reminds me, because it's a little bit glittery, it reminds me of the Little Mermaid, the Kiss the Girls song.
Yeah. I think the only thing I might like better is if this scroll was shown in winter with this, because typically when you have black and gold, that is a winter display.
It is still winter, yeah.
Yeah, and so I almost feel like that might even be better if it was defoliated and you kind of had that next to it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really important with 3-point displays that it's accurate to what's actually behind or in the distance or nearby. I was showing a 3-point over in at the Collinsville St. Louis show, and I had a scroll with a shrimp on it that was up, and I thought it was really fun for some flavor because I had a southeast tree.
Yeah.
And then I had another artist walk up to me and said, "Your shrimp's flying through the air."
Yeah.
So it's very, very crucial that we show mountain birds or some kind of other element that would be in the air or adjacent to this tree.
Yeah, no, you can show abstract.
And then that's what somebody else told me. So there's so many contradictory to that.
You can show like a,
But when you're told that your shrimp is flying or your other element is flying through the air,
maybe it was a flying shrimp.
Yeah, maybe we're actually at this show and you're throwing it because it's either a bad shrimp or you're done with the show. I don't know. So I thought that was kind of silly, but
it's interesting.
Maybe the gold is the fireflies.
Oh yeah,
so
that'd be cool. Maybe it is summertime. Yeah, maybe it is fireflies.
I mean, it is a little bright for fireflies, but we're getting a little too picky on that.
It's pretty cool.
All right, let's go into the big giant cypress and wrap this up for
let's check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Whoa.
Pardon us, Mr. Joey. Yeah, we're going to keep this straight. It's okay. Okay. So, hey, look, there's the man over there. Nate, you want to come give us some context on this really quick?
Well, first off, Evan made the back, now the front, which I think is better, the way it's leaning.
Yeah.
Also, if you see the back, it's a little more uniform. Definitely not as ramified as it needs to be.
Yeah.
This was a tree collected Christmas Eve of 2020.
Okay, I got that right.
There was never a chop, so the taper has always been what it is. The initial cuts have been rolled over. I let it recover for a year. I completely cut it back. Evan and I made it into more of a juvenile-looking deciduous. Probably a week later,
cut everything off again.
I had to cut everything off and go into a flat top style. Just because I didn't want that base, and I know it's when you talk about proportions and heights and things like that, I know it's almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we're here for, is to talk about that element of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me as much as person.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So
I think it needs to look older because if I go.
Yeah.
I agree with you. My only critique is I think you removed a few too many branches. So I think what I would like to see is a few more branches on the design.
He's looking at me because there was a branch cut off.
Not that one necessarily, but I'm saying you need something like, I don't know what happened there, but that might be useful. That one's not great, but you do need something in that area, you know. So it's just the only thing that I would say is you have this huge pot and your design is like here. And you know, I mean, that's not impossible. You look at some of the old John Naka trees and stuff, and you'll see these big containers and thin profiled trees. But this one, the base is massive, and it almost, to me, dictates. I would almost want to see some like heavy, low branching before, before I make it all the way to that height. you know.
So
it feels
like seconds.
It does feel like there's a difference in this is just so powerful, and this is so thin in comparison. Like it's, and I know it tapers up to it, so it's not that. But I just think these branches, we need like some big ones maybe here, and they need to be a little bit longer and a little bit more robust, I would say. But it's a phenomenal, I mean, the base, this is like a full-size tree. I mean, the base is off a full-size tree, so it's amazing. But we definitely need to build those branches to a bigger proportion, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah, what do you think,
Any
Carmen?
thoughts, Carmen?
Oh, of course I have thoughts.
Okay.
Carmen, be careful because it's bigger than you. You
I know,
already stood by.
this is what we actually call Carmen-sized tree. It is taller than me. Mostly I agree with Mike. I don't necessarily think you need lower branches, but I just want them bigger.
Bigger.
And I think even if you went up and out, that would be fine. But I think you need more up top just to balance out the bottom. So longer branches, bigger branches, but that's just an age thing. It just needs time. And so give it, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years. They grow so fast, I don't know how long it would take. Give it a few more years and you'll be good.
To expand, do you mirror the width of this?
Not necessarily, and that's the thing, is like, it's tricky. I will tell you, like, I wouldn't be keeping the profile this thin. I'd say you're probably the thinnest you can go is about there. You know, so that's, I wouldn't go wider than that either, because even though your pot's wider, and the old rule is you could go 2/3 the width of the pot, you have such a difference in this thickness versus this thickness here, that it's not going to be the same look. You're not going to have that same, it's going to look too wide here if you do the 2/3 thing or the third thing than it will for the trunk. So I would say you need to keep it thinner than the pot, but a little wider.
Maybe 6 inches taller.
That's not a bad idea. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that was one of the initial arguments that I've heard some people say. Is
Be a little
if it was
taller.
taller, which is insane because it's already pretty tall.
Well, if you want a tall tree, I'll give it a tall tree.
Yeah.
Evan,
It's
then
gotta
you
be
gotta
tall,
you gotta
it's
get
gotta
your
be
you
Then we
gotta
gotta
get the
get
black
everything
taller.
higher.
Yeah,
Yep.
you gotta get the black taller.
60-inch pot and literally 60-inch.
60-inch tall.
No way, it's as tall as it is. That's hilarious.
Taller.
It's a
It's like a box.
hippopotamus tree.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah, I wanted to talk about this one real quick because it's what
I've never
Louisiana is
seen
about.
anything like this is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I-
So
I
great
wanna see it
base.
in 5 more years.
Yeah. Definitely needs maturity, but
does.
cool. So we need to move on.
Hey,
to,
we all need a little maturity, right?
We need to move on to the next
I need-
part
I
of
need
the show
maturity.
here. So this was the Little Things Critique walking around. Thank you guys for tuning in. The live video of this will be available. If you're watching here, thank you for watching. And then, of course, we're going to show the pictures that are for the critique on our Instagram over at Little Things for Bonsai People on Instagram. So that will be there. This has been Evan Pardue, Carmen Leskoviansky. Yep, that's you. And
Mike Lane.
going through first live recording. That was not bad.
Awesome.
All right, let's go have fun.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.